Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Filthy Rich Professionals. I'm your host, Stephen.
And I'm Neka.
And you're tuned in to Rich Fridays podcast. And listen, today we had the distinguished pleasure of interviewing Patrick Rogers of Exitable. And listen, he's been mentoring and coaching other business executives on how to properly set up their businesses for a successful and profitable exit. Get it? Exitable, as well as how to have a proper mindset to balance wealth, health, and love. It was a fun interview. We had a good time.
We did.
And look, we want you to tune in. Tell us what you think below, and we'll see you a little bit later.
I am doing outstanding. Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks for coming on.
I just want to dive right in. I want to know how you got to this point of launching Exitable and choosing it as your area of focus. It's your passion. Tell us about that.
Oh, sure. Great question. So I was an entrepreneur. Well, still am an entrepreneur. Still own businesses, still buy businesses and all that. But back in the day, 12 years ago, started my first company, grew it. And, I think we had 15 employees at the time. And I tried to sell it. I was ready to move on to the next venture. And I think I was about 1.5 million there. And what I found was what I expected to get for the company was a fraction, what I thought I could get was much, much higher than what I actually was able to get for it. And when I dug into it, I found out the reason for that. And that put me down a journey. That put me down a path. I hired a business coach, an exit planning strategist, read every business book underneath the sun. And what I found out over the next 2-3 years is most people, when they try to sell their business, they don't understand that there's an actual science to preparing it to be able to sell. You can take a company and within less a year, without changing any of the revenue, without changing any of the profit, you can literally double the value of the company just by implementing a few things that I'm sure we'll dig into a little bit. But so that started me down this path because I was like, wow, there's so many other people there that probably don't understand this and don't know it. And it's so much more fruitful when they can walk away with almost double the take home.
Wow. So would you say what areas of business should CEOs be focusing on if they're trying to set up their business properly so that when the time comes to sell, they can sell?
That's really a weighted question. It depends a lot on the size of the company. If there's a company, if they're less than $10 million per annual revenue per se, right? Less than $10 million, typically the CEO is very involved in that company. Okay, there are many times that CEO has the relationships with the key vendors, key customers. A lot of times, if you kind of think about the CEO here, the company revolves around the CEO. He or she is touching the sales, is touching the marketing, the operations. Probably a lot of the stuff is in their head. And when somebody wants to buy a company, they're looking at the risk. That's the number one thing that reduces the multiplication factor, if you will, of a company. And how we value a company, it's the EBITDA or the net profit, if you will. EBITDA is a fancy term with a whole bunch of other stuff in there, but it's that EBIT, times some kind of a multiple. And that multiple is directly representative to the amount of risk that owner is going to take in buying that business. And if you have a company, especially with less than 10 million, that's one of the major things that hurts them is that owner is involved in the day-to-day operations. That owner is critical. So when they go to buy that company, the more involved the owner is, the lower the value of the company. And so that's probably the number one thing. Yeah. So there's a number of others, but that's one of the biggest for less than $10 million. There's other things in there like recurring revenue. What percentage of the business is recurring revenue? In other words, you buy it once, you sell the customer once, and then that's recurring revenue every month for the life of the customer. Well, that dollar value, believe it or not, every profit, $1 of profit from recurring revenue is worth almost twice as much as something that has to be sold again in the value of the company. So there's a lot of things that are really important to look at. And we want to be looking at that 3 to 5 years ahead of time to really prepare yourself.
So it's best to start early. What you're saying, Patrick, when But Nick and I, Dr. Nick, we were talking about it. She said her brand. I want to build an empire. I want to hold this is my baby. But you got to think about it. You're not going to always be able to work as good as we are. How early should that entrepreneur, how early should that CEO, that owner be thinking about, hey, I've got to scale this company. Like I really need to build, I need to have a future aspect, a future perspective of where I'm going and what's going to happen.
It's a weighted question, right? Sometimes there's people that come to us and are like, hey, I need a fire sale. I need to sell within a year. Well, then we dig in and we get the multiple as high as we can as fast as possible. If we have a company where we have 3 to 5 years ahead of time, depending on where they are, the first things that we'll do, like I said, we'll talk about is you get an operations system that allows the company to run without you. You get a leadership team that can make decisions just as good, if not better, than without you. Okay. And then another couple things is we need to get a marketing. We got to make sure leads are coming in without the owner involved. And sometimes if we have a few years, if we have 5 years, a lot of times what we're doing is we're doing acquisitions to grow. Once you get above a certain point, once you get above $5 to $10 million, and here's the important thing is what's their number, right? So if you have a CEO of a company and they start looking at retirement, or let's say they want to exit from their company and they want to exit and walk away with $10 million from that business. Okay. Well, when we do the valuation, we're going to determine, okay, where do we lie now? After brokerage fees, after taxes, blah, 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 all of that, what's the number? And then we determine what that gap is. And if that gap is great enough, well, we're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to grow the company. We're going to reduce all the risks, the profit, or excuse me, reduce the risk to somebody buying it. You get the multiple stuff. And then we'll start growing by acquisition or, standard marketing. And growing by acquisition is the fastest way to get there. So sometimes if we have 3 to 5 years, the company right now, they could get 10 million. They want to get 20 million. Well, we can do that. You can do that in a very short period of time if you're ready to grow by acquisition. And that all requires that you have all of this other stuff in place anyways. Does that make sense?
And that's acquiring to kind of make the product be what it needs to be for the people. Is that what you mean? We're acquiring maybe if I could give an example, a very basic. Well, let you give an example.
I'm about to say,
not give the example.
Acquisition.
So what I meant by
I think of acquisitions as buying a business.
Yeah,
or buying some type of product or service or capital. But yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please, Patrick.
Yeah, well, acquiring other companies.
Okay.
So believe it or not, many of my clients, when they want to sell 5 years from now, and let's say their business right now is worth, I'll just keep using the round numbers. Let's say their business is worth 10 million now, but they want a number of 30 million. They want to walk out with 30 million. Yes, you can do that. Buying other companies is the fastest way to do that. And it may sound like, well, that's just totally goes against the grain of, you're exitable. You're here to help me sell the company, right? True. But at what number and what are you looking to achieve? And when we start looking at acquisitions, you have two companies. It could be a vertical, it could be a horizontal acquisition. But if you have company A here, this is your company and you sell a widget, and this is a company over here, you don't sell this widget, but the same decision makers use both products. You acquire this company. Well, all of a sudden you have all of their clients now to sell this company to your product. And now you have this product to sell all these clients to. And what you end up getting is logarithmic growth when you do bolt-on acquisitions. So a little bit of a derailment off of, exiting, but it's a viable strategy when you have a company that's over 5 million and they want to grow. Acquisitions is by far the fast way to grow.
So Patrick, that was, I love how you said we got an acquisition, because that makes us think as CEOs and as entrepreneurs and business owners, again, we're thinking ahead, but it also has us thinking about, hey, if I really want to hit this particular number, there's certain steps I have to take. And that made me think about you all at Exitable. Like, what were you said something when you first started your first business, you didn't get the number that you thought you should get. What was it for you? What is it that taught you some of those lessons that you learned to say, okay, hey, these are the things I have to do? Because you're a serial entrepreneur. Tell us some of those things that we can share.
Yeah, great question. So in preparing the company to be able to run without you, there's a few things you have to have in place. And really it's that creating that operation system. creating almost like if you think of it as a franchise, right? If you were to expand your company, could you expand your company, go over to the state next door, plop down what you have, hire somebody who's good at business, and could they start it without you? And until you have that, you really don't have a business model that you can really expand and sell, right? You can sell it, but chances are, here's what happens, guys, right? So somebody will put, let's just say it's a $1.5 million annual revenue business. The owner's extremely involved. He's out in the field, he or she, whatever, has all the contracts, blah, 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 right? Just integrally involved in the business. They put it up for sale. And because they're so involved, because they haven't gone through and done the work of preparing the business for sale, they probably list it for more than what they think, more than what it'll get. And here's a fun fact. Only 20% of the businesses that are actually put on the market even sell.
Wow.
That's even if they, 20%. That's even, there's a plethora of businesses right now. So this is what's happening is they try to sell it. They have these grandeur expectations. It's like their baby, right? You know, it's like their house. We have this emotional connection to it. They've been putting their life and sweat and tears into it. They put it up for market. And because they have ego and pride behind that number and what they feel like they should get for it, it sits there.
Yeah.
And it sits there. It doesn't get any offers. And then 3 months, 6 months, you know, they may reduce the price a little bit, but it's not enough. And then it goes off the market. And then what ends up happening is these are people that start losing their motivation for doing the business. And this is what is happening all over the place. The business then starts degrading the CEO or the owner, whether they're going into retirement or whatever they're doing, they start losing the drive for it. And the business, so they stop showing up as much. The people on the team starts disengaging because the owner's disengaging. So now they're not giving best customer service. They're not trying to grow the business. And the thing ends up dropping off. And what ends up happening more times than not, these companies drop down to such a feeble level that then they do a fire or asset sell and they sell to one of their larger competitors for pennies on the dollar compared to what they could have gotten if they'd have done a little work up front and prepped their company. That's what's happening all over the place.
Right. I was looking at some research on it. There was some sites here I know in Georgia, acquisitions. And you talk about different businesses and you see a lot of them. I always ask the reason, why is this owner selling? Why are they selling? Did they get their burnout? I'm glad you hit it. They burn out because, again, you have baby boomers now. If you look at the market, they're ready to retire. We're ready to get out. We're ready to enjoy life. But I can't do that because, especially as entrepreneurs with business owners, because I have not properly scaled. So if I want to sell, I must properly scale. Should I say that? Is that fair enough?
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I'm listening to you. Tell me, what is the biggest factor whether a company will be successful? Because for your eye as being in this, you've been in this market, you understand, you deal with CEOs and entrepreneurs and businesses. What have you found to be the biggest factor? It may be 3 things. I don't know. Tell us so we'll know.
I tell you, man, that is a great question. So companies out there, people, business, it's real easy to go and spend a lot of time and energy on strategy, right? Oh, it's not this strategy, it's this marketing strategy, or put this sales in place, right? All of the technical things in business, they're all over the place, right? If you need a new sales strategy, you can go get that. You can hire the right person to do that. Marketing strategy, you can put the operations, you can put all the operations things in place that you want, okay? But if you don't, as the CEO, if you don't have a way to and bring up the consciousness, if you will, the culture, the awareness of the overall culture in the company, have a proven system for knowing how to raise up that consciousness of your company, then you're really, as far as scaling and in today's day and age, having that emotional intelligence or a system around how to have that emotional intelligence within your company to operate from that place. And so there's a number of different leaders out there and types of different people. One of them I'll talk about, you either are a catabolic leader or an anabolic leader. A catabolic leader is somebody who operates from a paradigm of either fear or anger.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
And I don't know if you guys are, how spiritual based you are at all, but sometimes people even akin this to chakras. And it's very interesting because if you're a leader that operates from these paradigms, fear and anger, well, guess what? You have a company that operates from fear or anger.
Right.
And
Negative.
when it comes to scale, when it comes to employee engagement, when it comes to empowering your people, they're not empowered. And most leaders operate from that paradigm. So we talk about all these things, and you need all these things. You need an operations system. You need a marketing growth engine. You need a sales strategy with a script and a team and all that. But if you're not an anabolic leader, and an anabolic leader is someone who understands this energy, this catabolic, you don't operate from fear and anger, and you elevate not only yourself, but understand how to elevate the rest of your team to forgiveness, to mutual respect, to working together, and can bring everybody with you. That is the difference between successful companies and not successful companies, in my opinion. The ones that really make it big.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know Gary Vaynerchuk, I love giving him credit where credit's due. He's talking a lot about emotional intelligence right now, and how that's really the way of the future. And it's really true. Like, are you able as a leader to look yourself in the mirror, understand how you say, what you say to people, where you're coming from? And it's not a matter of what you're doing anymore. I mean, yes, you have to do the right strategy, right? But now, who are we being in these moments of decision? When you have a decision for how you're going to react to a certain circumstance or a certain person, are you going to elevate yourself and come from a place of win-win? Or are you going to respond in fear and anger? Because that's what most people do, right? That probably wasn't the answer you were going to be looking for, but man, I'll tell you what.
That's my topic.
But it is, and it's actually relevant for today. You got to think about it. If you look at the current market, you look at just the way the world is right now, as far as we just had this pandemic. We came out of this pandemic. We don't know if we're still rolling into another one or whatnot. In the United States, across the globe, we've got inflation. You're talking about the interest rates rising. You talk about the cost and loss of labor. You've got the uncertainty in the world as far as this war, like all these different external situations that can cause fear and anger. And as CEOs, as leaders, how would you encourage your clients, and even us here today? How would you encourage us? Hey, listen, I need you to don't come from the catabolic. I need you to come from this place of love. I need you to come from this place of focus so that you can properly build, properly grow, and properly scale your business for sale.
And you're hitting the nail on the head. It's a process, right? It's a process where you have to help people understand that just because they hear something a certain way does not mean that is how it was intended. And the realm of this is that our thoughts drive our feelings and emotions, and feelings and emotions drive our actions. And when our thoughts many times are what is true, and when we work with our team players and our team members to truly understand that many times we allow our thoughts to come in and cause limiting beliefs, doubts on ourselves, and when we can effectively help them through that. Because that's all limiting beliefs are, is a feeling, right? It's an emotion tied to a thought, right? And so when we can help them navigate that and internally process the external factors, because the external factors, just because there's an external factor out there does not mean we have to allow it to affect us in any certain way. And how we perceive and you perceive that external factor is going to be different among everybody. And so, I think a great book is Byron Katie, where she talks about, the 4 questions, right? Loving what is. And I don't know if excellent book if you haven't heard of it, but it really helps people guide them through what's really true out there and what's not, and how to navigate that.
What would you say what benefits come when a CEO is able to balance their life as well as work, and is there a level of a certain type of mindset that they have to have in order to achieve that? Especially, I know, no matter what stage of business you are, whether you're starting off or you're in the middle of a $7 million business, you
Yeah.
need to find a
Yeah.
balance. Actually think. I mean, I would like to say that in the beginning, it's harder.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Well,
Not there
it's
yet.
interesting, yeah, we all have this transcendence, right? It's very interesting. So many people, CEOs that I work with, once you start getting successful in a business, it's almost like, well, what's next? And many people kind of start searching for what's next or how to really have impact in the world. But I'll back up real quick and just talk about the life balance thing. I can't tell you how many times when I started working with a client, I've been business coaching for 10 years, right? And how many times I'll start working with a client and I'll talk to him after our first session. I'll be like, I'm not going to business coach you. You will not be able to function. We can talk about these strategies and this and that and try to put all that stuff in place. But the fact of the matter is you're not going to be able to do it. Their mind was so, this one client, his mind was so racing because he couldn't focus. He couldn't concentrate. Why? Because his home life was in the pits. His son was, his son was 14 years old. His staying up till 2:00 at night, not doing homework. His wife was not, they hadn't had sex in months. They were barely talking. They were professional roommates. His health was in the pits. He wasn't doing anything for himself as far as work-life balance. So what ends up happening is sometimes these CEOs, when they're either they're working so hard or they're putting in, hey, I'll just put in 18 hours a day. And then the big lie that we tell ourselves is, I will go to my son's baseball game, or I'll do that date night with my wife when I get that new account, when I make 5 million, when whatever that is occurs. And that's, we're driven people. And sometimes that, it's very easy to justify that because it's right around the corner as far as we're concerned. We're almost right there.
Not on the calendar,
it's a big lie.
Right.
Yeah. And this is one of my mentors, Steve Chandler, talks about. It's the big lie. Because when we get there, there's always something else because we're entrepreneurs. That's who we are. It is. And so we think that like true happiness is going to come when we get that $5 million or when we get that new account. And the truth is that happiness is right in front of you. Happiness is within yourself. Happiness is relationships. It's love. It's loving yourself. It's loving those around you, and understanding how to incorporate that work-life balance to be happy now. It's interesting. It's only when people really can get their, in my opinion, true happiness comes when we get our mental game, our physical game going well. We have our relationships. We have that balance. And the truth is that we don't have to work hard to be successful in business. And in fact, the truth is the less you work, the more successful you're going to be. And that goes against every grain of what we think. Wow. But the truth is that we get so busy in our businesses, our mind is racing. We miss out on so many amazing concepts and ideas and things that would just come to us if we would enjoy life and we would relax and we would take a step back and allow ourselves to be conscious and be present with who we are.
What would you say then to the CEO who doesn't have the ability to balance everything right now? Let's say, what was the advice you gave to that young man that whose life, at home was not in the best of situations? However, business is fine, networking is fine, but you have to go home and you need a group and you can't. What do you say?
Yeah. So, great question. You guys ask amazing questions. So, what we have to do is when somebody's in a state where they feel like they have to do it, right? They're overwhelmed. They're stressing out. They have to do this. They have to do that, right? What they're doing is they're grabbing for straws, and the reason that they're suffering is because they have a blueprint or a model of what they think life should look like, what they think their business should look like. So unhappiness comes when we have this blueprint and we're not there, right? But we can feel like we can maybe get there, so we're working towards it, right? So we're trying to implement things. Well, suffering comes when we have this blueprint that we're holding on to and we're desperately trying to get there and we can't get there. We everything we do, we can't get there. We can never get there. So we either have to change what we're doing or change our blueprint of what success is. And I found that it's sometimes it's kind of a mixture of the two, right? It's a mixture of the two. What is success and blueprint? And we hold so strong into this. Oh, I've got to have this and I've got to. Do you really?
Right.
Is it necessarily true that that's the only way to be successful? And when we start questioning what is success and what is that blueprint, what is it in your life that you're really trying to achieve by achieving that? And when we start digging into what they really want, the inner depths of what's below, what's behind this, many times you find that they can get that from not having to achieve this. Does that make sense?
It does.
100%.
I'm just curious to know how, like those that you coach and your clients, how many of them actually, how long does it take for them to actually get to that place? Realizing, wait a minute, because, we're taught, hey, MBA, we got to have a focus. What is your goal? Where are you striving after? What are your KPIs? These are measurements. These are things we have to reach. These are things we have to do. And when you're saying, not really to dismantle that, but kind of break that down in pieces. Why is that important for this company? And that's not important because that doesn't bring me to happiness. That almost confounds a person. So what's the feedback that you get from that?
It depends on the client, right? So I'll kind of keep going with the thread of this gentleman here. When we first started working together, he couldn't function. There's no way he could even comprehend putting some of this. So he's kind of an extreme case, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe, but we worked together for 3 months. And what we were focusing on had nothing to do with business. It had everything to do with him getting centered and grounded.
No.
Yes, exactly, doctor. Getting grounded and centered as a man. Literally being able to function, we're doing meditation together. We're diving into his fears, his limiting beliefs, his doubts. We're going back. Literally, I'm not a therapist, but there's proven processes for how to eliminate these limiting beliefs and fears and doubts that are holding us back. And when we go back and we understand those, and then we have a process around that, we're able to eliminate those fears and doubts and beliefs and actually start to blossom from that. And in fact, every CEO, I've never met a CEO who doesn't have significant limiting beliefs that hold them back from being successful.
Wow. I'm reminded of, there's a book called Search for Significance, and it says unhealed hurts, unmet needs, unresolved issues are the reasons that a lot of people stay limited and stay where they are. And so by you saying that, we can get so focused on the business, the task, be task oriented, that we forget about self or forget about the people and people representing that self. And this segues, though. This is a great segue because this still has a lot to do with scaling the business. You said it, Patrick, earlier, that if we're running this business, if you're not owning the business, you're running the business, you're self-employed, and that burns you out, and you have not thought about taking yourself out, you really don't have anything that's sustainable. So what is the most important part or aspect in scaling that business up to, I guess, married with the fact that this CEO needs to be grounded, the CEO needs to have themselves together?
Yeah, if I was to put like a puzzle together of the three main things, you need to have some kind of a system in place, an operations system that is proven, that will scale with you, that will grow. And when you say an operations system, I mean, think processes, procedures, checklists, KPIs. Things have to be just like a franchise, right? Internal meeting structure. We need to have accountability towards continuous growth and projects, and we also need to have accountability towards operational metrics. So from an operational side of things, there's that. And then from a sales and marketing side of things, we need to have that system down that's continually bringing in leads, all of that kind of stuff. And then on the people side of things, once these two systems are in place, and pretty much any company that gets up to a $10 million or more, they have these things in place for the most part. There's some that don't, right? But most of them, by that point, they're a professional organization. They have a lot of these operations. They have a lot of these. But what they don't have in place is the people thing. Why? Because nobody has taught that CEO how to get the people thing in place. And when we say people thing, how to help every single team member within their company conquer those gremlins, conquer those limiting beliefs, conquer the operating from the fear and anger. I mean, I will work with CEOs and teach them how to transform their company, every single employee within their company, how to not operate from fear and anger, and we elevate them up the levels of consciousness. And when we do that, along with other things that we're doing with operations and kind of some stakes in the outcome, we now maximize employee engagement. And when you have a company, now we're talking like once you're above $10 million, when you have a company with a leadership team that runs the company without you, because that's what you have. If you're a CEO and you have to be in the company to run it above $10-15 million, you're doing it all wrong. You can, and I don't want to offend anybody, because I'm sure there are lots of CEOs out here actively involved with the company, but I will challenge you that I bet if you were to optimize some things within your company, employ a leadership development program, employ some of these things that we're talking about, a process to raise the consciousness of your company, that your company will become an entity of itself that will run the company much better without you. And that will allow you to free yourself up to do whatever you want. Maybe go acquire more companies, whatever. But I think those three things, and really just focusing on that people part as the most, once you get above that $10-15 million, that's where things start falling apart for people, because they get further, you get a larger company, right? You start getting to, 50, 100, 150, 250 employees. That's a lot of people. And if you don't have an emotionally intelligent personnel strategy for how to keep the culture high, the further you get away from the CEO, the less empowered and engaged employees are. Yeah.
Right.
How important would you say goals are for a company in terms of setting themselves up to exist without the CEO? Do you think a business plan is important, having plan B, C, D, E? That way, if A doesn't happen, I know we can do B. That way I can kind of control the anxiety. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, and I guess I want to rephrase. I mean, once you get to a company, once you start getting to a certain point, you're going to hire a CEO to run the company without you, and you're going to be the owner. And I guess that's what I'm really more thinking and saying. So when we say to have a company without a CEO, it's really, I'm just putting myself in the shoes of a business owner, growing the company 10 million, 20 million, right? At that point, you probably want to put a CEO in there who has proven themselves on taking a company from 20 to 100 million before, right? And pull yourself out, put them in, and now you're hands off, right? So if I understand your question, how important are goals with the ability of a company to scale? Is that basically kind of the question?
Yeah, like I guess let me rephrase. How important is having a plan B, C, D when you're looking at longevity without the owner being hands-on, or even just like you said earlier, setting yourself up so that when you do want to exit, you can do that.
A plan A, B, and C. So I guess I'll address goals. Everybody needs goals. You need to have a goal within a company for people to align around, for camaraderie to be created, so that we have a common goal that we're striving for, and then we need to have a way to celebrate as a team. So a plan A, B, and C. I mean, I think you always want to have a plan B, especially right now going into like for the recession right now. One of the things that we're preparing with all of our clients is, what are the what if scenarios?
Mm-hmm.
And
that's good.
What are the what if scenarios that 6 months from now, if you lose half of your revenue, what are you going to do? And we're actually producing business plans to so that we're prepared, so that we're ready to go. Because a lot of times going into recessions, haven't had a lot of them myself, but enough, companies react too late, and their cash flow ends up getting sucked, and it's an unfortunate thing. But sometimes if you start losing clients and just because of whatever, if we start going into another COVID or there's an actual recession, you need to have a way to peel off layers to be able to survive and weather the storm. And so sometimes that's also getting a line of credit right now, maximizing your savings, preparing for that. But at the same time, having a structure in place agreed upon from your leadership team, that if we do have these things occur, that we have plan B and C, and here's what we're going to execute on it. And feel good about it going into it. So it's not a surprise. It's not chaos. It's not, we're going to be good.
You're prepared for it.
Does that answer your question, Doctor?
Yeah, it does. It does. And the reason why I asked that question is because a lot of entrepreneurs go into business with the idea of what their business is supposed to be and nothing else.
Yeah.
And even, I ask this question of all CEOs that come on the show, all founders: is a business plan important? And we've been getting mixed answers. Some say, no, you don't need it. Some say, yes, you need it. I do know that depends on the industry. However, I'm surprised at how many CEOs don't have actual business plan. Many of them get through with networking and leveraging networks. However, that paper is not there that tells you, if this were to happen, this is your plan B. This is your, they may have their quarterly goals and annual goals, but when it comes down to the what ifs, like you said, they're not ready. They don't even think that should be them.
But I think, Patrick, you're going to say something. I heard you.
Well, it's interesting. The only time that I would go to a company and say that we need a business plan per se, and when we think of business plan, I think of our top to bottom pricing strategy, marketing strategy, unique selling proposition, our operational process, our scaling process, people plan, everything in there. Right, debt to equity, financial, all of that. The only time that a company really needs a full-blown 20, 30-page business plan is if they're going to go out for money, right? If they're going out for investors, if they have to go to a bank, because otherwise it's just a bunch of BS, truthfully. But to your point, a company does need a strategic plan, and this is, to your point, Doctor, there's tons of different frameworks out there. There's the EOS operating system. There's the scaling up Verne Harnish system. If we look at all those systems, what are they really? They're a formal process for how to do the best planning, the most efficient planning that works the best. And it's fast forward 1 year. Where do we want to be? What are the big picture items we need to do to achieve that? And then keep going backwards. Break it down into 90-day plans from each one of those. And then what has to happen within the next 90 days, throw some assignment to it, throw some KPIs behind it, throw some accountability with weekly meetings, and we're off and running. That, to me, is the most important plan in a business, is that strategic plan where we're starting out with a year and we're coming back to quarterly actions held accountable by weekly meetings. And to your point about having backup plans, absolutely. And the more of that you have, I feel like when things do start falling apart, the economy, we have these what if scenarios, we're able to approach them with a lot more clarity and purpose instead of reactionary, what we've already planned for.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just a whole nother level. Yeah. Most people don't. Most people will go into it blind and
That was a great answer response, because I told Dr. Neka, I said, hey, I don't, the strategic plan is the key. And she's a fan of the business plan, and she executes it well. I'll just say that. So
yeah.
you to break it down. Right. let me ask this. Kind of shifting gears a little bit, going back to scaling, even though this is all a part of it. Does a business need to have positive cash flow in order to sell? I know some people have probably thought about that. Do I have to have positive cash flow in order for me to sell my business?
To sell the business?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you start looking at companies that are, a bit out of my realm, that, the companies like Amazon or Twitter, these guys, there's a whole nother different thing. I'm talking about, our everyday businesses. Unless there is a strategic, so in short, to answer Stephen, no, they don't. Absolutely not. When someone purchases a business, when someone purchases a company, they either buy it because it has financially astute and it's a financial good buy, right? And that's where all those things, the EBITDA times the multiple, and that's all that stuff in there. If someone's buying it as an investment, they're going to make a financial purchase. Then on the other side of things is a strategic acquisition. And when we didn't really talk about this, but if we have some time ahead of time, 3 to 5 years, the first thing that we're doing is we're going to do a strategic acquisition consult, and we're going to work through and identify who are the likely people 5 years from now when we put your company for sale. Who's going to be the ones we're going to target to buy your company? Yeah. And then what we do is we position your company over the next 3 to 5 years so that you are the perfect, juiciest acquisition. They're going to be like gobbling you up, and they're going to pay a lot more. Strategic acquisitions will pay you sometimes 5, even 10 times higher than a financial acquisition. So to your point, Stephen, so to your point is strategic acquisitions are important. Do you need to be cash flow positive? No. If you have something that other company could need or want, or would strategically allow them to dramatically increase very quick, or whatever reason, if you have some kind of IP or some kind of goodwill that you have that nobody else offers, if you have something that nobody else has, and it's going to dramatically help them, and you're cash flow negative, doesn't matter. They're going to pay you a lot for it.
I thank you. I asked that question because I know researching this industry, especially those who are looking to sell, going back to the baby boomers, they're tired. And some of them, because you said it earlier, when you're working that business, you grow tired. I mean, your passion, just like your flame is going out. You go to work, you're working. Yeah. And so now that positive cash flow, it's like, I just need to sell. I just need to get out of it. But you want to make sure they're maximizing what they get, because think about it. You put your sweat equity into this. You put your life into this business. You gave your time and maybe sacrifice some other things. Not to say that you shouldn't, but we understood in the beginning having to plant those seeds. So with that, I guess before we wrap up, I want to think about what's the most impactful mentoring results you've had with a client.
Wow, great question. I would say, it's kind of funny, and I should probably bring it back to business, but well, you know what? I'll say impactful. The longer I've done this, I'll share with impactful for me is when I was able to save marriages, and one of my clients, literally, he when we first started working together, I think he had a like $5 million company at the time. And he was the guy who was working day and night, and just, his family literally barely knew he existed. He wasn't able to show up as a human being, as a dad, as a father, And he also wasn't showing up for his people in his company, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so he was just going around trying to do a lot of different things. And he was another example where we focused on who he was as an individual. We didn't even talk business. We didn't even talk relationship with him, we just focused on him for the first couple months. And then we started venturing and started opening up to who he's been in the past, who he is being, has been negatively affecting his relationships at work, his team, his home life. And so once he was able to see that and start building a new foundation, a paradigm of who you're being, and things just start changing. People start doing things for you. People at the office that were operating out of these paradigms, fear and negativity, they started showing up for him and how the company used to be, 5 years before, just because he was vibrating at a higher level. It's just so contagious. And so in this case, we ended up selling it for 13, but it over about a 2-year period of time, the company hadn't grown at all for 2 years prior. It hasn't been growing. It was stalled out. There was a lot of people fighting over this or that. They were losing accounts. The customer service was out. And just by him transitioning his vibration level, his increasing his levels of consciousness, he was able to dramatically improve the company. And I think 12 million we ended up selling it for 2.5, 3 years later.
Wow, from 5 million.
That's about what it was worth. Yeah.
Looks like you don't just increase the value of a business, but the value of the person.
Oh my gosh,
that's you can keep that and take that for a tweet. Just give me credit one time.
You got it, man. You got it. Yes, I love that. Yeah, it's so true.
When you're talking about that, if you think about that, if we started this business, and usually if we are the CEO, we're running that company, we have a lot invested into it, so it becomes a part of us. And you said that earlier, our doing we can think that it's replacing our being, but that's not the case. Just because you do it doesn't mean you have to be it, because you can do without being, but you cannot be without doing. So knowing that is like, okay,
I love it.
Well, I hear you, like you bring, because it's making sense to me. Personally, it's telling our listeners, there's Nneka and I, Dr. Nneka, are in business, and there's different things we do. And right now with this market as an investor, I'm in heavy in equities. I'm in oil. I know you're like, wait a minute, gas prices, you're making money. Yes, but there's things you still have to be patient, and it takes time with. And I find myself in doing, I'm still growing tired, but it's not until I become saying, wait a minute, I planted, I've let this thing grow. How can I become better? How can I make the people around me better? And that ends up growing the business. I'm sorry, I just gave you a whole adverb there.
No, and I think it's so important right now with everything going on in the world that if we as entrepreneurs and CEOs can take that responsibility on ourselves to transform ourselves and then transform the people in our companies, and the more we can do this across the United States and the globe, what could we have actually impact? How could we actually impact and raise the levels of consciousness? Because there's so much negativity out there right now and bringing us down. And if we can arm people with how to bring it up, not only are we going to make a lot of money in business and be happier with our lives and everything else, but oh my gosh, we might be able to actually feel like I'm at a beauty pageant for Miss America, but we might actually be able to have some effect on the universe. Kind of cool.
All right, before we end, because Nneka's tell us. I've heard you say this at least 3 times. Raise our level of consciousness. Raise our level of consciousness. Talk to us. How can we simply raise just something to practice? Maybe we can do that help us raise our level of consciousness for our listeners and for ourselves.
One of the first things I do with my CEOs is, and we've all heard this term meditate, right? We've all heard meditate. It's kind of the keyword buzz, but it's true. If you can get into a practice of meditating and grounding and centering yourself once a day, twice a day, start even 5 minutes and then increase overall, what ends up happening is your mind and your body, you allow yourself to enter periods where your creativity and your ability to consciously think and be grounded and come from a whole new place is very valid. It's a very valid thing.
Yeah.
So that would probably be one of the first things that I do to help people really come together and start being higher levels of consciousness and awareness.
You made me almost want to meditate right
I was
now.
going to ask you before we go through a meditation. And the reason why I say that is because I do not know how to meditate. So when I attempt to meditate, it turns into a to-do list in my mind.
Well, wow.
And I slowly find and I write the to-do list and I go.
Well, let me talk a little bit more about it. It'll take just a minute, and would you like me to share with you a couple tips? Yeah. Okay. So what you want to do, Dr. Nick, is you want to start out first of all by taking maybe 5-10 really deep breaths. And one of the most important things is when you breathe, you want to breathe from your belly. Okay. So we breathe into our belly, and then once our belly's full, then we fill in our chest. Okay. And then we let the chest out and then the belly. Okay. We do that about 5 to 10 times. And then what I want you to do is imagine almost like a fuel gauge right up here, right? We have life is going on, stressful, right? Life is just full of stress, and you can feel it. I know you can feel it when things are pushing you. Your brain energy is up here. I want you to keep breathing. And I want you to imagine the best masseuse in the world is just kind of slowly massaging your forehead. You're starting up here, okay? And he or she is going to just start moving down. You could even do it yourself if you wanted to, or you just imagine it. And as you move down here, you start on your forehead. Once you get down toward your eyes, you will never move the muscle on your forehead again. It is done. And you keep just kind of imagining it. Touch it if you want, massage yourself, or eventually you do it without even touching yourself. And you imagine this fuel gauge going down and down. And it's the stress levels. This is a gauge of stress. And it's going down and down as you go. And then as that gauge goes lower, you will not move a muscle in that body. And you start becoming aware of each muscle. You start thinking about your nose muscle. You start thinking about your mouth muscle. And this is a level of awareness and consciousness that you've probably never realized. And then you imagine this level going further and further down your neck, and you become aware of the muscles in your neck, and you feel them, and you go to your shoulders. And as you go down and down, you let everything just go and relax, and your shoulders just kind of fall down, and your arms and your muscles, and you go all the way down to your toes. And you work your way down. It takes 5-10 minutes. And if you're still doing it, you keep going down through your torso, down through your hips, down to your knees, and you become aware of every muscle as you're going down. Tune into the muscle. Think about them. Thank the muscle for being there. And as you move past it, it's totally at peace and just relaxed. And then you take a few breaths. Once you've done that, you take 3, maybe 5 breaths, and you come out of your meditation. And that is an awareness. I'm sorry?
I need to record your voice and play that.
Yeah.
My mind did not let nothing else enter but to concentrate on everything.
Yeah.
Really amazing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Love it. Yeah. You're
Wow.
100% into it. Yeah. Fantastic.
I hope you guys did that with us, because that was invigorating. That was good. That's part of the CEO
Good.
coaching. I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thinking about
Yeah.
being able to
And
de-stress
they
like that.
will some of my clients even they'll do that as part of their meetings before they even start. They'll do a meditation.
Idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really do.
I'm still
You know,
feeling my toes.
unfortunately for me, in my attempts to meditate, I give myself a reward for successfully doing it. I've put in more strategies to get myself to do what I need to do, to
Oh,
step away from work. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I will cheat myself because I believe, you sleep when you're dead. And if you slack now, it's not the time to slack, it's the time to grind.
you have to learn how to make
Mm.
rest a necessity,
I rest when
not an
my
obligation.
body forces me to sleep.
That's like, but it is because you don't want to burn out until you're dead. You don't want to don't put yourself to sleep. You rest. You said because you live by that mantra. You rest when you sleep. Don't put yourself to sleep, or you die when you sleep. So don't know.
No, I've been trying to implement some good strategies. So I love this
This
meditation technique that you just gave us.
Yeah.
I hope our listeners at home, those CEOs that find themselves working 27 hours of the day and not doing anything else, they're not eating, they're not attending family functions, they're literally spending every penny ahead of time before making any revenue. I think, even some of the strategies you mentioned today, or even just the mindset, having it in a way where you can function, but also know strategies you need to put in place to, have a business that can function without you, or you can sell it at the end.
Yeah.
Because as I think I said it earlier when we first started, the exit strategy for me is it only occurs when you're failing. It doesn't occur when you sell it, when you're not why you should be selling your business if you started it. But that's just me romanticizing the idea of the business. Obviously, you can't do that. And if you're going to set your business up for you to step away from it, it's the same as setting it up for exit, whether you're in it or not, you're silent or not. So
It is. It really is.
thank you today for just coming in and sharing Exitable's beliefs, your beliefs. I think there are beliefs we should all adopt. And I want to let our listeners know that if you visit exitable.io, that is EXITABLE.io, and that link will be on the website. Mr. Rogers is giving a free assessment. He will take a look at your business and he will assess it to see what areas need to be improved on, so that if you ever want to sell, you can sell, and you can sell in the most profitable way. And I believe it comes with a 30-minute session.
20 minutes. Yeah.
So please tell us more about that, because I think that is a valuable tool, even if you're not selling your business, just to know where you stand.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even if you're 10 years out, sell, or 20, whatever. So if you go to exitable.io, right on the front page, there's a link to an assessment, and it takes about 12 minutes to go through. Bless you. And it's going to ask you some questions about where your company is right now and some of the financials. And we'll do an assessment. We'll set up a time to meet. And what I'll actually do is we will look at the main factors that when somebody is looking to buy a company, the main factors that'll cause your business to be value and attractiveness to be lower. And then I'll also put a plan together for you for how to maximize your value and attractiveness to your company. And I'll even tell you what you could get when you do all these things and increase your valuation, what you could get by making these changes. And we'll do all that totally free. Just giving back and hopefully, so.